Canada has been in a housing crisis for some time. Developers have taken the hint, and across the country, there are higher housing starts. But two of Canada's major urban centres aren't seeing as many shovels in the ground. Let's go to Tania Bourassa-Ochoa, Deputy Chief Economist at Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, for some more on this. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
So really interesting, I think, how this is playing out. Toronto on track to have the lowest annual housing starts in 30 years. Why do you think things have slowed so much in the big city?
So the Toronto story is really due to the condo market more specifically. And the condo market is really in a correction mode right now. The main reason being that we saw actually a big fluctuation in demand for condominiums. So we saw a big increase in demand during the pandemic. Interest rates were low. And now the environment has shifted quite a bit. And so we're seeing this demand come down quite significantly. So we have to remember Toronto has been an immigration magnet and an investor magnet for quite a number of years. With immigration trends coming down, the rental market has been easing a little bit as well. We're seeing interest rates to higher levels than what we saw during the pandemic. And so all of these different variables are, becoming a less profitable equation for investors. So there's not a lot of attraction of new investors in the condo space. For those who did move forward with a pre-sale condominium, are now in some cases not even able to obtain some financing for it. So definitely a lot of pieces that are explaining this current correction that we're seeing on the condo side. Developers are canceling projects, putting some projects aside. In some cases are able to convert them to purpose-built rental buildings. But we're definitely seeing a strong increase in housing starts in Toronto.
Okay, let's talk about some of the other cities that you looked at. Other big cities are seeing better housing startups. Montreal is one of them. Why is Montreal on a quicker pace than Toronto, for example?
So Montreal is one of them. We're also seeing, kind of the same story unfold when we're looking at Calgary, Edmonton, or even Ottawa. What's driving these markets is purpose-built rental construction. One of the main reasons is because there's been concerted efforts from all levels of government in the last few years to really push some new programs. That could be funding, that could be looking at regulation, for example. So there's a lot of efforts that are being deployed in order to push more of that purpose-built rental construction. And so we're really seeing the fruit of that in some of these regions. When we think about the condo market, for example, it's definitely not a big piece of the pie when we're looking at Montreal, because the condo market has been on the downturn for several years now. So it's really a slight piece of what we're building in Montreal right now. What's driving the show is really purpose-built rental construction.
For Calgary, you've noted positive builder sentiment. You also mentioned that this is one of the areas where there would have been a lot of local policy changes that has helped these builders or developers to get shovels in the ground. But tell me more about the builder sentiment in Calgary specifically.
Yeah, so there's definitely been a sentiment that is a little bit more on the plus side than in other regions. There are a lot of challenges that developers are facing across the country that are, the same for everyone in a sense, where we're looking at financing costs. But there is some positive pieces of the story, if you will, where in terms of some development charges or even in terms of costs for material costs or labor costs. So there's some pieces of that kind of explain that sentiment. It's important to note, however, when we're looking at housing starts, they don't reflect the developer sentiment today. So there is a quite significant lag between, a project being ideated and a business decision being made, and that project really being officially started and that foundation being complete. And so in the rest of the country, we're definitely seeing, by talking to developers, when we're looking at our rental development survey results, we're seeing a little bit of that pessimism show up quite significantly. A lot of that is due to the current economic uncertainty, the trade situation, inflationary pressures, especially when we're thinking about the construction materials as well, that could be impacted due to the tariff situation. So there's still a lot of challenges that are very much present and that are kind of weighing down on that optimism when we're looking at the development industry across the country.
When you mentioned Montreal, you mentioned purpose-built. I imagine that to be sort of apartment or smaller dwellings. When you look at markets like Edmonton and Calgary, have you moved to more sort of family dwellings that are being built, or that same style of sort of smaller apartment for rent?
So in fact, when we're looking at Montreal, we're seeing a little bit of both, but these larger structures are definitely very present, even in the Montreal sector. And we're talking about these larger multi-unit buildings. In terms of what is being built, it will depend. There will be some smaller units. We have seen that, for example, in the case of Toronto, we have seen a little bit of these smaller units kind of showing up in the market. But I would say it's not necessarily, it could be quite diversified in terms of unit sizes.
Very quickly, what about Vancouver? We started with Toronto, where it's been slow. I imagine Vancouver is probably in that same boat.
Vancouver is in the same boat as Toronto in a sense where the condo market is definitely in that correction mode. We're seeing, that those lower levels, not as low as Toronto. The situation in Vancouver looks a little bit brighter when we're looking, forward looking. So it's not as gloom as the Toronto story. So we are expecting, to see these lower housing starts in 2025. That is true across the country, actually. But we are anticipating a little bit of a pickup in market conditions that should help kick up a little bit of these housing starts in that region.
Okay.
That being said, we are seeing a little bit of that. When we compare to other regions in Canada, it is.
Okay. Sorry, Tania, I do have to leave it there. Tania Bourassa-Ochoa, Deputy Chief Economist, Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation.